Ladies and gentlemen, get your snacks ready, make yourselves comfortable, the show is about to begin.
Of the Hot Breach podcast. I believe we're on episode 10 now?
No,
Something
12? Pretty
12?
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty sure
Double
it was
digits
11
for
last
sure.
week.
And I'm going to be honest right from the get-go here. I don't know that we've ever had an agenda that's this juicy. I'm looking through our topics here. There's so much to go over. I mean, just so much stuff here to talk about. So it's going to be a jam-packed episode. If you're not familiar with this format, this episode is going to be going up on my YouTube channel. At this time, all three of us are currently streaming this. That's myself, Rogue9, and Prodigio Pete on various outlets. I'm on Twitch. I believe Rogue and Pete are both on YouTube right now. So you guys want to introduce yourself to your audiences?
Yeah, I'm guessing many of you know me by now, and I do want to welcome everyone because I am streaming on YouTube for the first time in ages now. Normally, I am on Twitch, so if you do enjoy the show today, if you want to catch us more regularly, I've got the links to all three of our streams down below, so that will be GetFlank's Twitch, my Twitch, where I normally stream, and then Prodigio Pete's YouTube channel. So yeah, do follow us there if you want to check back in future, and yeah, feel free to leave comments throughout the stream, and we always do a question and answer at the end in case you're new. So yeah, save some questions for then.
Cool.
Yeah. So again, if you guys are not familiar with this, we also do an audio only version of this. It's on SoundCloud as well as Google Podcasts, iTunes, lots of different ways to enjoy the Hot Breach podcast. So make sure you check it out on the go as well. With that said, let's get into this episode, guys. And we're going to start out with some patch notes that were actually just dropped within the last, 24 hours, I believe. And that's the year 3, season 3.2 patch notes. So we'll get those up on the screen right now, and we will read through those. Just give me 1 second to get my sources right here. Okay, There we go. They're on the screen right now.
Obviously, if you're in the audio version, you can find this under the news section of the Rainbow Six official website.
Yeah, great point. So looking at these year 3, season 3.2 patch notes, this is going to be coming, first of all, to PC on October the 29th, and then on October 31st for both Xbox and PC. So separate deployment dates there for PC versus console, but everything I'm about to read right now will be coming to both PC and console. That's important to know. So getting right into it here, as far as balancing clash, reduce weapon swapping speed between CCE, shield, and sidearm. Delay before refilling charge after usage ends increased to 2 seconds from 1 second. Attackers regain full mobility after 0.5 seconds, down from 1.5 seconds after being shocked. So basically, this is exactly what they tested in the test server and then removed. And we have been back and forth on this podcast. We told you it was coming. We told you it was out. So now here it is. It's actually coming. I'm not sure why they removed it from the test server only to bring it to the full game. But yeah, this is something we've talked about before on the podcast, and it is, in fact, coming to the game. Do you guys have any thoughts there on Clash?
Yeah, just as a note, that was dropped essentially for PC this afternoon, so it's already out. If you're playing on PC, console is tomorrow. I think obviously we've talked about it. This is a useful change in terms of pushing her into the role she was meant to be. She was meant to be a support character that relies on her teammates to get those kills. She wasn't supposed to be independent. She wasn't supposed to be able to hold down part of the map on her own. And essentially all three of these steps make her more dependent. You still have weapons. You still can, when you're in hard cover, switch from your shield to your weapon and then come out and engage, but you don't have that advantage of the quick switch anymore that had been in there before. So this is a nerf to the way she works right now and has worked since release, but it's not meant to be a nerf. It's really meant to make her what she was supposed to be.
Yeah, I can only really echo what you said there. I completely agree. Basically, yeah, they're kind of saying that, because if you look at the wind delta, she is right at the bottom next to Castle.
Yes.
But in spite of that, they've done this because they're saying it's about their intention of how she's meant. It's not like, oh, we've noticed that she needs a nerf. It's just like, actually, that's not really how we wanted her to play out. And also, like they said, some of it was bugs anyway. So that said, I think she's going to be a lot less fun to play as, and you've got to make sure you're playing with friends. But, you know, to be fair, I don't really like her anyway. I usually get my friend to play it so I can read the rewards. But yeah, basically, I agree with what Rogue just said. Someone in my chat saying the console pack, well, Rich is saying it drops on the 31st.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
that was in the original paragraph there that I read out. PC 29th, 31st for consoles.
So 2 days. Yep.
Moving on to Maestro here, the out of 556 recoil aligned with other LMGs. They explain this more in the wind delta sheets, which we're going to go over the wind deltas after this. But basically, the hip fire for Maestro's out of 556 was unique to him in that it got more accurate the longer you hold it down, and it looks like they're just reverting that back to the way that other LMGs in the games perform.
Yeah, makes sense. I guess they experimented with something different. I think it's quite sort of interesting what they did there, but it's confusing people. You know, the whole idea that the longer you fire, the more accurate or less recoil you have. So I can understand the logic in going back to the standard. I suppose, you know, with Rogue, with your spreadsheets, you must hate it whenever they, you know, vary from the norm with some of these weapons.
This wasn't so bad. I mean, this isn't really a stat thing. It's kind of just a feature. But I see the point in reverting this new idea, because unless you made a conscious effort to hipfire with Maestro and to use this feature, I don't think many people really did. I would almost guess that maybe a lot of people, unless they saw something mentioned in YouTube videos, they wouldn't even have realized that that's a thing, that when you're hip firing, your fire becomes more accurate the longer you shoot. My guess would be most players weren't using this. Most players might not even have been aware of it. So it makes complete sense to roll that back.
Okay, next change on here is the SMG 11, and they have reduced the recoil to improve handling. So SMG 11 is definitely one of those machine pistols that got nerfed with the recoil changes, and it looks like they're going to reduce that a little bit to make it more usable. Well, that's great news to all the smoke mains out there.
Exactly, and that's the reason for it. Smoke has underperformed significantly, and I'm sure we'll get to that in a bit as well, for this season. So this is aimed at making him more viable again.
Yep. Very happy.
The Vector is getting the same treatment, just basically reduced recoil. I didn't notice it as much with the Vector as I did with the SMG 11, but apparently with the recoil changes, the Vector was harder to handle. So expect a little bit more controllability out of the Vector after this patch goes live on whatever platform you play on.
Yep, happy with that. I like Mira.
As far as bug fixes, I'm not going to go over all the bug fixes, but the big one here is that, and this is under bug fixes, okay? Deployable shields placed perpendicular to a window prevent vaulting. And then there's a little paragraph under it that says it is now impossible to install deployable shields in front of windows in a way that would block, vault, or repel in. Trying to do so will result in deploying the shield forward or backward, depending on the player position, in a way that will always leave enough room for vaulting or repelling in. So we've known this has been coming. We've talked about it on the podcast before. Here it is coming with this patch. No longer will you be able to shield trick windows.
Great stuff.
Beyond that, there's really nothing that jumps out to me as far as the bug fixes and the different map fixes. So yeah, I mean, is there anything else there that you guys want to talk about or highlight?
There was some mention. Am I looking at the right patch notes? I seem to remember there was some confirmation that they're looking at Glaz.
That's in the developer notes. We'll go into that with the dev, the wind deltas, if that's okay
cool.
with you.
Yeah, of course. Yep.
Okay. Speaking of which, I mean, let's head straight there. The wind deltas. Now I'll pull those up. Okay, yeah, that's going to be under the year 3, season 3 designer notes, and this is something that we look forward to every single year. I have it up on screen right now, and basically this is halfway through the season, or a little bit more than halfway through the season. The developers kind of give us a snapshot of how operators are performing. They show us how operators are performing in the platinum and diamond levels, and on PC only. Okay, so that's important to note here. But Rogue, do you want to explain exactly what a win delta is? Because I think there's a difference, correct me if I'm wrong, between a win rate and a win delta. Do you want to explain exactly what a win delta is and what we're looking at here as far as a chart?
Before you do,
Okay.
Can I just say I'm so glad you asked Rogue that question. Carry on.
If I put you on the spot, Rogue, I'm sorry, but I figured this was right up your alley.
I'm sure it explains it in here, but I can give this a go from memory. Let me have a go at it. So basically, what they look at is they look at the win rate of the attacking team, or the win rate of the attacking team when they have a certain operator included, compared to when the win rate of the attacking team when that operator is not included, and they basically subtract that to give a difference. So if it's positive, it means with that operator in there, so the higher up in this chart, with the operator in there, the team tends to win more than without him. And if it's below 0, it means that the attacking team tends to lose more with that operator in there than they win without him. If that makes sense. Did I get that sort of right? I think that makes sense.
I think so. That's definitely my understanding of it as well. I think here's the big thing to know. If an operator's high on the chart, that means that their win rate or win delta is good. That means they're doing well. If they're really far to the right, that means they're being picked a lot. Okay, so if you as long as you understand that concept, you're going to understand exactly what this chart means. So, okay, looking at the attackers first, guys. Anything that jumps out to you?
Ash.
Yeah. Yes.
Ash. Come on. Ash jumps out, but, do they dare touch her? Because, she's everyone's favorite rusher, everyone's favorite fragger. And it's just kind of like one of those accepted things that everyone kind of enjoys. Well, there will be some people that say they don't, but a lot of people enjoy it, and they kind of just leave her as she is. Now, I'm not necessarily advocating for a change, but looking at that graph, I mean, if anyone is up for a bit of a balance tweak, inverted commas, it's got to be Ash, surely.
Well, but there's a high pick rate. I mean, Ash's pick rate is really high. I mean, the highest in the game, but her win delta is just above average.
No,
so does a high pick rate necessitate a balance change?
Yes, it does. And I'll tell you why. Because she's picked so much more frequently. Like, for example, Lion, he's not picked that often, and when he does, he wins. But, from on a balance of probabilities, to be picked, to have a 70% pick rate and still be that strong on balance of probabilities, probably does pick her out. Yes, she's not high up the group.
That's a great point, Pete. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's basically my point. I mean, you could look at, say, Glaz and go, oh my God, he's really strong, underpicked and too strong. People should be picking him more often. But then the argument could be, if you pick him more often, if you have more people picking him, maybe he would drop below that 0% line. That's the point I'm making.
Okay, I got a lot of feedback from people because my initial take on this was that too. That's really what jumped out to me was, holy cow, look at Ash's pick rate. And they've said previously in the Ask Me Anythings that they are looking at ways of making Ash less attractive. I think this is challenging though, because I don't think that Ash, I don't know. I don't really think Ash is OP. I don't. I mean, especially when her utility, I mean, you compare Zophia's utility to her, and it's just like there's no comparison. She's a 3-speed with a tiny hitbox and an amazing gun.
She's got a Beetlejuice head.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
Bloody problem.
yeah.
Yeah, her gadget isn't, especially nowadays, isn't even that useful anymore. A soft breaching rocket launcher. You think about that, oh, it's a grenade launcher, really, even though it flies like a rocket. You think about what that's used most of the time nowadays for. It's used for clearing barbed wire or finishing off a kill behind cover. You don't really use Ashe to open walls anymore. That's not really what she's there for. She is just the entry fragger. She's got a gun, she moves quickly, and that is her unique thing. I think, though, the point needs to also be made that the stats show she doesn't necessarily win more often than she loses. She's actually pretty well balanced in terms of her performance. I mean, less than 0.5%. What are we looking at there? Maybe 0.3%? It's the problem is that she is just such a comfort pick, that she's so easy, and she is so much liked at this stage.
Yeah.
That she is overpicked rather than overpowered.
Blackbeard having the highest win delta. How do you guys feel about that?
I mean, people are crying out for another Blackbeard nerf, aren't they?
Half and half.
That was half sarcastic.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's half and half. You look at the pros and they detest him. You look at the high level players who have thousands of hours of experience, and they do dislike him, because once you get to that experience level and you're always landing your headshots, and then you lose your gunfights because the enemy is using a Blackbeard and he will soak 2 or 3 shots and then kills you. So I understand that he's frustrating. I understand that he's powerful. I think maybe he's become more powerful this season because of the kind of rebalance they did to him last season. They made his SR-25 a little weaker, his Mark 17 a little bit more powerful, and they increased his movement speed to make him less of an angle holder or a window repeller, and more of a regular operator that can also move throughout the map. And that has made him far more effective, which was probably an unintended side effect. But yeah, he is apparently now the most winning, the most successful attacking operator.
I mean, where'd you go with him at this stage? Where'd you go with Blackbeard after everything they've done to him? I mean,
it's a button. It's directly beside the end button on the keyboard, and it's the abbreviated. It's DEL. I believe it stands for delete.
I doubt they actually legally could, because
that's a good point.
He's included as part of a DLC, and with that season pass, when you buy the season pass, you get the maps. Everyone gets the maps. It doesn't give you anything, but it does give you operators. So I've heard it said before about Lion, and go ahead and delete Lion. I think Fabian had a bit of a petition going, but I doubt that they could legally delete these operators because of the fact that they're sold in the season pass.
It would probably need to come in a rework. So you would still have Blackbeard, but he could be a completely different operator. I think they would have to go that route. I mean, it's worth noting Glaz is another operator. Okay, if you were going to name the top 3 attackers that high level players detest, I would say you'd be Lion, Blackbeard, Glaz. 2 of those 3 are the top 2 win delta operators according to this chart. And we'll get to the notes here in a second, but they're looking at ways of changing Glaz. They don't like how he works right now. I can see where it comes from. It's not something that I encounter a lot at my play level, that I feel like Glaz is broken as much as other operators. Let's talk about some of the ones that maybe aren't near the top, that maybe are a little bit surprising. First of all, if you remember last season when we saw this, Finka, Lion, Blitz, Dokkaebi were all up there at the highest. And now that's been thrown on its head. I mean, Finka is just barely above average with, again, that really low pick rate. You've got Blitz, who's well below average as far as a win delta, and Lion, who's sitting right on the line. Anything that you guys want to add to that? Also, while we're here, let's talk about the new operators. Maverick, he's being picked a lot, but his win delta is below average. And then we'll get into class when we go to the defenders.
The idea of a new operator being picked a lot, I mean, shock horror, they're going to be picked a lot, right?
Right.
And also, it's not accurate. This is the ebb and flow of seasons. Like you were just saying, with certain operators being in one place one season and another place another season, sure, it could be a balance change. But as well, it's just the natural ebb and flow and preference that some people have. Operators like Lion, Maverick, of course, they're going to be picked very often. They're new, they're fun, they're interesting. There's something to learn there. But I think that you need to look at it over the long term more than the short term, because with an operator like that, you look at it and you think, oh, they're not a problem. I mean, they're being picked a lot, but the win delta's slow. But actually, they could be a problem, because you might see at the end of next season him being above that 0%. So being picked a lot and falling into the overpicked too strong category. It's just too soon to tell. They just need a bit more time.
Easy theory to apply there is that a new operator, people might not know how to handle him or her best yet. So you might see a low performance initially and then see it ramp up once people really get to grips with that operator. So yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, it just takes time. You can't look at this and go, oh, that shows that Maverick is perfectly balanced, or anyone else. Give Maverick three seasons in total, and you might see him, quite hot. You might see him sort of a Glaz sort of area, but also in the high pick rate, depending on whether or not they change him.
Yeah,
may or may not. So I'm not saying that will happen. I'm saying it's a possibility.
Yeah. In terms of Finca, I think that's quite interesting, because with her, they went for a very complex change last season. They wanted to make her more fun because she was underpicked, but they also wanted to bring her down because she was 6.5% positive in terms of her win delta. She was the most outrageously overpowered character ever, according to the statistics of wins and losses. So what they wanted to do was make her more fun, more played, but also less powerful. So they nerfed her gadget and they gave her hand grenades. And I guess they kind of achieved half of their goal. She is no longer overpowered according to the stats, but now she's used even less. Does that look as if she's used even less than Fuse? Is she the least used attacking operator? It looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and let's keep this train of thought going when we go to the defenders. But just as a note, when you look at the people who are picked the most, I see gadgets that require. Okay, Finca has that very passive gadget, and I've talked about this in previous videos. You push a Finca button, you don't really know what impact you had on the round. Okay, you look at all the ones that are overpicked. The Habana, okay, I just opened a hatch, instant feedback. Maverick, I just opened a hole, that's instant feedback. Sophia, I just stunned an enemy and got a lot of information, instant feedback. Thermite, I opened a hole. Twitch, I destroyed a Mira. Ash, I just put a big hole in a wall. Like all those gadgets, I know there's some that don't line up here, but it seems to me like people want to use gadgets that are fun to use. They don't want to push a button and then just have it happen and not get any feedback on how they influenced the round. They want to see their utility put to use, and they want to see the results of it.
Interesting. Yeah, you might have a point there, because you can have an operator that has value to your team, but you don't necessarily see what that value is. For example, smoke. If you use smoke, you know what you've given to your team, but you could have an operator, I don't know, Rook, where you perhaps don't necessarily know you don't know that your teammate over there just tanked one extra shot and didn't go down and actually clutched a few kills. Yep. So yeah, maybe that feedback is an important part of what makes it satisfying to play as a particular operator. I think that's a good point.
Speaking of the Rook there, let's move into the defenders, unless you have something you want to add there.
There's a couple of things.
Okay.
I wanted to mention, I think, as the second most played attacking operator, certainly, we have Twitch, and I think it might be worth looking at her again, because I think one of the reasons why she's still used, despite having had her gadget nerfed relatively recently, is because of the power of her gun. High fire rate, very powerful, great for killing. And if you think about the gun as it is modeled in the game, I think it has only a 20 or 25 round mag. It actually has a shorter magazine in there. And I think maybe in future, to try and bring her play rate down, and because she's supposed to be a utility focused operator, but actually she's just kind of another fragger. So touching her gun is something that I could see as a viable choice in future.
Yeah.
And one guy I wanted to highlight was Sledge. This year we see him on the perfect pick rate in terms of what the operators are looking for. And what is that? About 0.25% positive in terms of the win delta. So he is the most balanced operator, not only this season, but if you actually go back through the different charts for the last season and the season before that, he is consistently the perfectly balanced operator throughout season to season to season. So
what an observation.
That's
a great
interesting
point
to sort of highlight.
And he has the SMG-11 as an option, so he didn't really feel the effects of the SMG-11 much, which is, that's interesting to note as well.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the defenders here. And I have the defenders win delta up on the screen right now. What jumps out to you guys here?
Rook.
Yeah.
Rook, and again, if we talk about consistency, if you go through all three designer patch notes there, or designer's notes from all the way back from February when it started with Season 1, then Season 2, then Season 3, he is consistently the top winning or the top most effective defender, even though his pick rate is consistently only around 20%.
Explain it to me. Why? Why does Rook have the highest win delta? What makes him strong?
It's because he makes, first of all, his gadget is up front. You put that down during the prep phase. There's nothing that's going to stop you. Most operators can be stopped from using their gadget. You have to kind of use it throughout the round. Some you are forced to use it entirely during the round. Some you can use a little bit before, a little bit later, something like Legion. But his you can put down before the round starts and everyone can armor up. It can be 100% effective and it cannot be countered pre the actual round launching. So it will always succeed if everyone grabs the armor, and it's actually really effective. You can't get killed in one shot. No matter how hard you get hit, you will always go down first, which creates a much higher chance for defenders surviving a gunfight, even if they get downed. Plus then, his armor plates have a 0.8 damage multiplier, so all damage is reduced to 80%, which basically means that a 3-speed operator, a 3-speed 1-armor operator, turns into a 3-speed 3-armor operator. And a 2-armor with plates becomes even heavier, and a 3-armor even heavier than that. So even though you might only take 1 or 2 more shots at close range, when you talk about longer ranges, when you talk about penetration shots, leg shots instead of body shots, those plates win gunfights, and they will help each and every one of your teammates win their gunfights. It is the most underappreciated. It is a relatively boring, relatively simple gadget. You plump it down, everyone grabs a plate, off you go. You don't really see the effect of it, as we've mentioned for some other operators, but you are helping each and every one of your teammates win their gunfights throughout that round, and that makes him consistently the most effective defender to have on your team.
Yeah, really interesting point. This kind of harps back to the conversation we were just having. It's like you are providing something really important, but you don't always know that you're doing that. And it just makes me think that I should be a Rook main, really. I should be, picking Rook. Yep.
I agree with what Rogue said as far as him explaining it. I think there's a large piece of this, though, that you have to give credit to his ACOG. Because I think that standing in the site, anchoring in the site with an ACOG, and having really skinny angles is insanely strong in this game right now, and it's becoming more strong because of map design. If you think about Villa, and then you think about the discussions I know we've had with map designers, how many times have you heard them talk about buffer rooms? Buffer rooms are a new aspect. I wouldn't even say new, but they're an aspect to map design now. From my conversations, the impression I get from the map design team is that they want to create it to where you can't directly enter a site easily. Okay, you have to go inside the map and then go through a buffer room in order to get into sight. Okay. And if you look at Villa, you look at the newer map design, that is definitely something that's been in place. Yes, there is an occasional window that goes directly in the site. It's not 100%, but for the most part, it's hard to access that window, or it's a death wish to jump into that window. For the most part, you got to enter the map and push through the map in order to push objectives nowadays. You can do it vertically, you can do it horizontally, but that's how you have to do it. And with that in mind, sitting on the site as an anchor becomes safer unless you're susceptible to vertical play. And it also becomes stronger for you to be holding skinny angles, looking down corridors and stuff like that.
Yeah, because interestingly, if you go back through the designer notes, Rook is always around where you see him on screen now. You can go back. You can't go back as far as to a point where, Bandit and Jaeger had ACOGs because they didn't do designer notes. But again, interestingly, every defender with an ACOG, Tachenko has an ACOG, doesn't he?
No, he doesn't.
No. So every defender with an ACOG is above 0%. There isn't one below. So yeah, I think maybe that does play into it. The importance of getting the headshot and holding those skinny angles, and like you say, the buffer rooms is quite a big part, And also for people that perhaps were kind of Jaeger mains, I think they've perhaps gone towards operators like Rook for the comfort of having the ACOG.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you guys make of Jaeger? The Jaeger Ash main obviously still exists. You can see Jaeger has the highest pick rate. But what about Clash's win delta? Did that surprise you guys?
Yes, I'd say so. I'm surprised by her being in the lower left corner. She's a new operator. She's brand new for this season, and she is one of the least picked. Not by far, but she's towards the bottom end. People don't enjoy playing her, and when they do, they're not very successful with her at all. In fact, she's worse than Tachanka at winning. She's less effective and only beaten to the bottom spot by Castle. So yeah, it's so funny how they've nerfed her once already. They're nerfing her again right now. So today for PC and a couple of days for consoles, to make her even less independent, even more team play dependent, and that will affect her. I mean, not everyone has the ability to have a team to play with. A lot of people have to solo queue, and she's going to become even less viable in those situations. And that is going to weaken her even more. It's going to bring her further to the left, less picked, and it's going to bring her further down, less powerful, I think. Maybe not by a lot in terms of her success rate, but it is surprising that she hasn't been able to perform until now, or players have not been able to use her to the fullest extent.
I think she's just not fun. This is my point of view. I don't think she's fun. It is, of course, it's good to help your team, but if you're a solo queuer, you will play Clash, but you won't have the support. So you could really help someone, but like a lot of people go off and kind of do their own thing. And I know because I solo queue most of the time I'm playing, though sometimes I play with a friend. So I know that experience. You play as Clash, and it's just after doing it a couple of times and not having that support, and you're trying to set it up so other people can come in and smash it, but if they're not there, then you're ultimately quite vulnerable. So she's not really fun to play. The most fun is if you can persuade a friend to play as her. So that's when she becomes fun, but not when you're playing as her.
Yeah.
Do you guys think? Oh, go ahead.
I mean, at the end of the day, winning is the important thing in this game. But you think about it, when you're in the game and you check your own stats, it shows you your win ratio and it shows you your kill death. And she is not a killing operator. She was never meant to be. She's maybe been up until now, but now that she's getting nerfed even more, she is a support player. You are there to block the enemy, to hold them off, and to feed kills to your teammates. You're going to be bottom fragger if you use her in every round as a defender, and yeah, people will point fingers at you and laugh, and you don't feel good because, oh my god, I died more than I got kills this match because I was playing a completely dedicated non-fragging support player on defense every time. As much as Rainbow Six should be about getting the win for your team, I think there is that stigma that is going to attach to you, and maybe you're not going to feel good when you look at the end screen and you're right at the bottom because you haven't managed to get any of those kills. You haven't managed to rack up a decent score. So I think by her concept, she kind of clashes with what players value in an operator as well. It's about the gadget, but it's also about being able to get some kills.
Yes. No, I think that's a great point. I really do. I'll admit.
Go Sorry, go on. All right.
No, I was just going to say, like, my win rate when I look up my stats with Clash is the highest of any operator by far, but I still don't play her a ton, and that's I care about winning more than the average person, and I still
do you solo queue a lot on that account?
No, I will not play her as a solo queuer. Absolutely would not.
So Koros said, and I thought this was really interesting, that these graphs, they're for platinum and diamond ranked for Clash, obviously, and all the other ones. And, probably, well, I'll just read out. He says, this is also being platinum and diamond ranked is bad for Clash. Probably not many solo queue at these rank levels. Wonder what her win delta at gold is, or even lower,
Yeah.
So what I thought was a really good point.
You'd think maybe, I mean, you have factors to figure in there. You'd think at lower rates, at lower ranks, you'd have less cooperative play, and that would make her harder to use. But maybe against less experienced players, she is also a bit harder to counter.
Yeah.
So I think I think it would be hard to say. I wouldn't put money one way or the other, because I think there are conflicting factors that come into play when you think about playing at a lower level than the platinum and diamond we're looking at.
Do you think Legion's in the danger zone there? Would you be surprised if year 4 of Siege rolled out without us having some type of nerf to Legion?
So what they're doing, I've actually got a bit of inside info. His traps, they're going to have a little red LED like flashing on them when you lay them down.
Really? When you lay them down, or when they're down?
Are you making a joke?
Maybe it's a joke.
You troll.
Dumbass.
You troll. I was going to say breaking Hot Breach podcast. Here comes the Legion nerf. No, I mean, Legion is a tough one, man, because I'll say it. I think that Legion has too much of an influence on a round. I think that if you come against a smart Legion player, it's too much, man. Like, it's too much. If you're in the last 30 seconds of a push and nobody has taken out the goo mines that he's already laid them down and he has them in smart locations, GG's. It's over. And I mean, he's got impact grenades. He's a 2-speed, and he's got a good gun. I'd say an above average SMG. So I think Legion's really strong right now. I don't know what direction I would go with him as far as a nerf, but I do recognize this is where I expected him to be. I see it in game as well as on this chart. It's not. This isn't a Rook example where I see Rook up there and I'm like, it doesn't jump out to me in game. The Legion being where he is on this list, it does jump out to me in game right now.
One of the advantages we have now, that we have 3 seasons worth of designer notes, is that we can go back and we can track, because he hasn't been changed massively in a while. And if you look at last season, the year 3 season 2 notes, he had a 40% pick rate and a 0.25 win delta. So he was overpicked, but not really overpowered, barely. He was more powerful in Season 1, where he made it to, I'm going to say, about 0.8% of a positive. So he has been powerful in the past. He's always been positive. He's never been this positive, to be fair. Mm-hmm. But I think maybe take natural fluctuations into consideration a little bit, because that is something that really sticks out for what they've shown us this season. Because, I mean, you look at the supposedly second most effective defender, and you have Kapkan, and he hasn't been changed at all. He wasn't changed. He's not been changed in ages. And if you look at where he was last season, he was down on the very bottom. He was at -3, right down there with Frost and Castle and Tachanka. So he's gone from being one of the worst performing defenders last season. Within 3 months, he is now the second best for no apparent reason.
There is a reason. There is a reason.
Yes.
Credit to Valkyrie in my chat. Why Legion is so strong is because of the IQ nerf. Less people want to play IQ because she has no frags.
And that's affected Kapkan as well, maybe.
Yeah, Yeah, it's more than that. I think that's a contributing factor. I agree. I think, and I made this video, but I think that these traps are Legion, Capcan, Frost, Ella are being their strength is being magnified by all the information that defenders have. So you look at the defenders that have above average win rates: Valkyrie information, Legion information, Echo information, Ella information, Pulse information, Maestro information, Alibi information, Cav information, and then you have the Frost, Capcan, and Rook. Okay, so as an attacker, your life has never been more difficult throughout the entire course of the round as it is right now, because you've got all this information that the defenders have. And what that results in my opinion, is a lot of last 30-second pushes. And when in the last 30 seconds, a Capcan trap is really strong.
Yep.
A Frost trap is really strong. A Legion trap is really strong. And I think that what we're seeing is that attackers have to take more time to deal with the rumors and to deal with the information that's on the map, whether it be an evil eye or an alibi prisma or whatever. And that results in them pushing the objective in the last 30 seconds, and it makes them ignore or be distracted and not focused on getting rid of a Capcan trap where they normally would be.
Makes
That's
sense.
my explanation.
It's a valid theory.
Do you guys want to move on here? Are you anything else you want to talk about as far as the defender win delta?
No, that's fine by me.
Okay. Let's talk.
I just want to say one thing. Like, why is Legion getting stronger and stronger? Because he's always in overpick too strong. So why is that continually getting better for him? Because you think of the way he's working with the other new operators like Maestro. Is that your logic?
If you think about what's changed in the game since the last time we had this, now Maestro and Alibi were both already there, but people are learning to use them much more effectively, in my opinion. And they're learning evil eye camera spots from pros, seeing them actually using them, and how they can be used most effectively, because Maestro is somebody that's used a lot in Pro League. Then you also look at Echo's he's gotten 2 drones, and dead teammates can now spectate on those drones and ping with them. Those are the 2 big things that have really changed to boost up Legion, in my opinion. If the attackers are able to be on site and looking and putting pressure on site within the first minute of the round, Legion's not very strong. At that point, he's only gotten out 3, maybe 4 of his goo mines. But if attackers are busy on the other side of the map dealing with roamers because of this information meta, then now those goo mines are storing up, and then finally you get to the last 30 seconds where Legion is a god.
Okay, yeah.
I think one of the things to consider is natural fluctuation. I think we may just see from season to season metas shift slightly, player preferences shift slightly, and we might just see sort of a bit of a floating up and down. So I mean, if like Legion actually supposedly got worse in season 2 than he was in season 1, and now he's a bit better again, I'd say part of that is just sort of a natural up and down.
Yeah, I think you're right. I definitely do think there is something to say. There's definitely a margin of error here that we don't really know, but it's definitely there. To talk about the notes that they put in here, just real quickly, I'm not going to talk about Clash because they basically just explain what we read in the patch notes, and they say we understand that Clash doesn't have a high win rate, but like you said, Rogue, this kind of goes against the spirit of her design, the way that she's being played right now. And to really highlight the big things here is Lion and Glass. So here's what they say about Lion. Lion continues to be problematic for us at higher level play. We have a designer that is currently testing a pair of separate possible short-term solutions. One adjustment will remove the intel gathering aspect of his gadget, or we may go with the other, which will trigger more of a Jackal style ping. This is still very early on in testing and production, and we will have more details to share once these changes have gone through some feedback sessions. So Lion is looking at a rework. And not only is he looking at a rework, we might see a short-term rework come our way that would, in the short term, fix Lion. And then while he goes through a more in-depth rework, that's the way that I read that. What are your guys' thoughts?
The Jackal style ping, that's something I remember talking to you guys about when he was released. Just as like, I understand why he was introduced together with the Outbreak mode, and it made sense in there to give him that power, to make him that useful. But then my argument, even back then, was when you go into PvP, why not change it? Why not have it different? And you could even have some kind of lore explanation, right? Against these alien creatures, it works by highlighting them, but against humans, it's not as effective. I don't know. You can make up whatever. So to have like that Jackal style ping, that could have been a thing right from the beginning. Obviously, if the anticipation had been there that he would be that powerful. What I find really interesting is that they are now testing a short-term solution that would remove the intel gathering aspect of his gadget altogether. For me, what is Line about? He is about intel gathering, and he's about freezing your opponents. That is it. That is his job. I'm really interested and curious to see what kind of solution would involve taking away the intel gathering. That, to me, is fascinating, because for me, that would be a massive shift.
What about if his gadget, whenever you pushed it, you know how it makes the noise? What if it was only that noise, but maybe amplified to where during that time, the defenders, couldn't hear an attacker push going on? That's just an idea. I don't know. Maybe something like that. I agree with you. I don't know how you take away his intel gathering aspect.
I thought that was kind of confusing, that bit.
Yeah.
Like, because that's like saying Pulse won't be able to gather intel. Like, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Moving on to Glaz here. Much like Lion, we're not happy with Glaz in his current state. We're trying to move away from his role as one of the best site-pushing operators, supported by his own smoke grenades. We want to bring him closer to the original idea of a sniper holding a line of sight with a high-powered rifle. This one is also early in production, but it is a bit more promising. Much like the line changes, we'll be performing additional playtests internally with pro players and plan to share more details in a future test server or designer notes entry as it draws closer to going live. So, they're looking at changing Glaz too. They don't want him to throw a smoke in the objective and walk in and nobody can hurt you and you can see everybody and they show up like big yellow bananas on your screen. They want him to be a more range support operator, and it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, when I read that, like, the bit that stood out was supported by his own smoke grenades. So I thought, oh, maybe they'll just, do that. But then, well, that's something they could do in 10 seconds flat. Well,
yes.
It's not a big rework, is it, to remove smoke grenades from an operator and just give him a different gadget or claymore or whatever. I don't know what everyone just runs smoke grenades, right? So
right.
Who knows what his other one is. So it sounds like this is getting to the core of what Glaz should provide, and they don't want him, like they say, just being that frontline operator that puts the smoke down and then just stands there and is really powerful. So there was a number of ways they could do that, and one way I was thinking is if he had a weapon with a much lower fire rate, but maybe a bit more lethality, like it was more of a powerful weapon, but it fired slower. So dare I say it, a bolt action sniper. I mean, I know that sounds mad because we're talking about using a bolt action sniper when you're breaching into a building. It is ludicrous. They wouldn't do that. But actually just having a lower fire rates weapon would kind of achieve, in my opinion, what they want to achieve, would it not?
Yeah, it would help.
You totally wouldn't be able to like breach, think Oregon laundry room. You just wouldn't be able to do that if you had a really, really slow, because if you miss a shot, you're knackered.
Yeah.
That's definitely what it sounds like to me. And in terms of the power, I don't think they can give him much more power because he's already 2 shots for certainly 1 armor operators. I'd have to double check to other armors. But he's already incredibly powerful, so I don't think they can do much there. But what they could do is give him more range, because the bizarre thing about Glaz right now is he's the only kind of dedicated sniper in the game, but his damage drop-off starts like something like below 10 meters. It's ridiculously close, and once you get past that, he loses a lot of power. So I can see them extending the range of his gun at the cost of fire rate,
Yeah.
So definitely something to keep in mind and stay tuned for. It looks like we're going to be seeing some major changes come the way of Glaz and Lion. No mention of Blackbeard though. So, I think that maybe comes back to what you were saying. There's some fluctuation with Blackbeard. Anyway, moving on. Let's get into this.
The problem is if they hold these positions for a long time.
Yeah.
Not one season. It's if they are problematic over a long period, like Rogue and yourself have said, that they will fluctuate up and down. You don't need to sort of panic, nerf every operator in the game. Just give it time.
Right. No, that's a good point. So let's get into this Halloween event, guys. Over the last week, the Halloween event dropped. We in previous podcasts speculated about it based upon leaks, and I think that we were, definitely close with what we were speculating on as far as how it would be implemented and rolled out. And there's been a lot of people who have really enjoyed it, think that it's been well done. There's been some people who feel like it's been a bit disappointing. So what do you guys have to say about the Halloween event?
It's been rubbish. Frankly, I think.
Let me before you go into that, let me just say, okay, what came with the Halloween event was a reskin of the map Haunted that featured some effects, some lighting effects, some different decorations, some Halloween themed things. Also, there came a set of packs unique to this event called the Crimson Veil or something like that. Yeah, packs. There's 21 total that feature some new headgear, charms, uniforms, universal skins for operators in the game, and then a discovery playlist where you can play that house map with only 5 operators, all of which having Halloween themed skins and stuff. That's basically what this Halloween event was. So with that said, go ahead, Pete. You think it's rubbish? Why do you think
it's totally rubbish, and I won't be persuaded otherwise.
Okay.
There's a few major problems with this Halloween event. Number one, it's actually okay. This is my opinion, and I will just say this. Disclaimer. It's not that I'm ungrateful for free stuff. Having this event in there, but the fact of the matter remains that if you're going to have an event in the game, you surely want people to want to play it. And the way I'm speaking to people, and I feel the same, people are going in there to grind out and get the achievements so that they have the cosmetics. The problem is, it's, whilst the additions to the map are really cool, it is nice to see it in a different light. I use that term kind of
quite literally, yes.
Or lack thereof.
But the fact is, it's not fun because you can't bloody see anyone. And I'm sick and tired of getting killed by people I can't see. So, yes, the first time you play it with all the different spooky things going on, I think it is really interesting, but there isn't a lot of replayability in it. And I think most people in there now are just trying to grind out those 60 kills and never go back into the event. So that's the number one. That's the major problem. It's not fun. And the second problem with it, like the way they've monetized it just feels dirty to me, if I'm being honest. So obviously you have these cosmetics, a few of which you can get with in-game achievements. But then, to get the other cosmetics, you need to buy loot packs with R6 credits. And of course, if you want them all, then it's going to, I think for me, I have to buy £41, which is probably, I don't know, I'm going to guess about $60 worth of R6 credits. And I will have some left over. But this is the season where lots of new games are coming out. Can you justify spending what you would go and buy a new game for on R6 credits to unlock a few cosmetics, some of which are good, they are quite cool, but the way they've done it is quite shady as well, that you can't individually buy the one that you like. You have to get, and sorry, we talked, I think last week or the week before about loot packs and how, you would still be able to individually buy the skins that you want in the game, and they're just an addition. But when these events roll round, they change their tune very quickly, Ubisoft, about that. They change their tune very quickly because you can't individually buy the cosmetics you want. It's a lottery as to which cosmetic you get. And if you do want them all, then you do have to go ahead and spend, a small fortune to get them.
Really good points. I mean, the first point I would make is I think we all should give ourselves and each other quite a decent pat on the back, because considering that last week we were recording the podcast before the event came out, we basically nailed it on the head. We knew there'd be a new pack bundle with a whole separate thing similar to like the Sunsplash we've seen, and we knew that House would be reworked in a visual way, and we did guess that it would be put into a separate playlist. So really, our expectation was pretty much what we got. I still feel a little let down, and I think the main trigger for me is that we have the operator limitation. Some people might argue that the operator limitation is to create something different, something fun, something chaotic. You can't use all of the operators that would normally block reinforced walls. You now have to rely on your wits. You have to adapt and make do with the 5 operators you get. I personally think that the fact that you can only use those, and the fact that the special skins come pre-attached, you don't have to select them, they're not a choice, they are there, whether you want to or not. To me, that is a shop front. That is a sales store. It's like, look at these marvelous skin bundles, which you can get right now if you spend, as Pete mentioned, literally the price of a new game. It's like, I've seen someone mention 50 euros, and that's even if you grind out the 2 and the 1 you get free. So this is expensive to get. It really is. It's the price of a game to get these cosmetic items. And I kind of feel like, we mentioned this last week, why can't an event be fun and enjoyable and a positive thing and make money at the same time? If you think about that on a spectrum, I think we've landed closer to the money-making side than we have to the fun side. I think if you look at it in a bit of a skeptical way, this is geared to sell those packs. And I'm thinking we see other changes as well. Not only do we get to play as these new cosmetic items to sort of whet your appetite even more, but in the past we've always had 3 free upfront, right? You get 3 Sunsplash packs. Here's other packs. You get 3 of them for free. That's what we've had up until now. For this event, they've given you 1 for free and 2 that you can grind out. And I think there's multiple aspects to that. First of all, obviously, it makes you engage in the event, whether you want to, whether you're having a really good time or not. And that's one aspect. But I think another aspect that it attaches a value to these cosmetic items. To get an individual one, you need to go and get 30 kills, which for some players, especially if you're playing on your own, might take quite a long time. I mean, if you're pretty decent, you can do that in less than 10 matches if you go really well. I certainly know. I think I took more than 10 matches to get them on average. I was getting sort of between maybe 4 and 6 kills on average per whole match. I think my best one was 8. So it did take me a good amount of time to unlock those packs. And by having to invest that time into unlocking 2 individual packs one by one, I feel that kind of implies a value. It attaches a value. It's like I put so much effort into getting these, which then maybe might influence some people into thinking, well, I mean, they are really valuable. It took so much effort and time to get them, and my time and effort are valuable, so the price that they're charging for them, which we've said adds up to the full price of a new game, essentially, is justified. And I don't think it quite is. So as much as we'd expected exactly what came, I mean, we were essentially sort of trying to come up with the most plausible solution, and we basically nailed it on the head. I still feel a little bit surprised at the sort of undertones of sales pitch in this whole event.
I think. Well, go ahead, Pete.
Just one thing, because I know you haven't had your say yet. I just think I agree totally with what Rogue said. I think it's naughty what they've done in a way, because so you cannot individually buy the cosmetic you want, right? So you then have to go through and do all the loot box lottery. Yes, there's no duplicates. I take that on board. But then you can't just buy the complete collection for money. It's not like, however much money it is, say it was $50, you can't just buy that. You need to buy more credits than you need to be able to afford them. And that's a little bit insidious in a way, because say you have some left over, and then in future you're going to be buying things and be like, oh, I'll just top that up. I just feel like that is a bit shady.
Agreed.
That's just my opinion.
That
and I've
is-
got to say it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's
Consumer.
100% on purpose. The fact that first of all, the fact that you have to convert real money into a premium currency, that itself sort of detaches the real value of real money from
Yes.
what you're paying. You're not paying money for these skins.
Okay, but that's
you're
an
paying
industry
credits.
standard. That's an industry standard.
Yes,
Let's
okay.
not-
There's
let's-
nothing new.
yeah,
There's nothing new.
yes.
That's been also a standard for Rainbow Six for these kind of things. That's the first step. And yes, I think the second step as well is that it never quite adds up. You always have some left over, and then it's an easy temptation to just top it up and go for another one.
The next elite skin. Or I'm only 400 R6 credits short, so I'll just top it up. So yeah, I just think. And like Outbreak, they did the same thing with Outbreak, but hang on. Outbreak was this massive new mode.
Yes.
Completely new maps. I think there's 3 maps, AI. You know, they had to bring in the Paris studio to build it. They perhaps spent nearly a year building it. You could see it was blatant to you how much effort they put into it. And it was kind of like, well, the loot pack thing is a little bit shady, but they've put so much effort into it. I can see that they need to get that money back to fund the development time and effort that they've put into it. But this thing, which is bomb mode on House, and yeah, and like what they've done cosmetically, it does look cool, but it doesn't play out very well. And I think it just, I think it's just a little bit shady. That's my opinion on it. Had they gone and done something completely different with a brand new mode that we'd never seen, that wasn't 5v5, and just bought into the fun of having an event mode where, you know, the normal game is so serious, then I may have been a bit more on board. But
That's where I want to go, Pete, because I think, okay, my overall statement with the Halloween event would be opportunity missed. If they had done exactly what they did with the house map, not changed anything, if they just brought that house map into casual, maybe a discovery playlist without any big fanfare, without any special packs or anything, it would have been a home run, because it just would have been, wow, this is awesome. Look, one day house has changed, and you can go in there and you can play. This is a Halloween event. When they bring the packs in, I agree with you. If you're going to monetize this event, make the gameplay aspect of it just as special as the Outbreak aspect of it. Because in my opinion, the cosmetics that came with this event are all pretty darn cool. I mean, that Jaeger headgear, that thermite headgear, it's some pretty cool stuff in
Vigil.
there. Yes, a lot of that stuff is really cool. Well done to the art team on the cosmetic aspect of it. But imagine this, okay? And I get it. I'm not a developer. Who knows if this is possible? But imagine how cool this would be. You go into house just like they had it. But if both teams work together to destroy all the pumpkins that were spread around the map, then an Outbreak event starts. You see an Ajax come down from the moon out of the sky. You get these grunts that start, spawning together. And all 10 of you on this map can work together to clear out this Outbreak stage that's set on house. You would have something completely different than this game has ever experienced, with a 5v5, but both teams working together to do an event. That would be a cool thing. And, we see this in Fortnite. Fortnite's a battle royale mode, but when they do their big events in the game, you see all the players on the map. And sure, you have the random, ass who's going around and killing people during these events. I'm sure it's going to happen. But for the most part, players will work together to create these events and do something really magical and really cool, and something we've never experienced it before. If they had done that and really created something unique and special, then I think that would match the value of the gameplay with the value of the packs that we saw, and maybe give those packs a little bit more credibility. But we've said on here time and before, guys, how many times have we said we understand that microtransactions are what makes this game goes? If you want games as a service, meaning something that continues being updated time after time after time, microtransactions come with that. And the impression I'm getting from you guys and the community is that we will accept nothing less than being able to buy exactly what we want. We do not want packs anymore in this game. Fortnite has completely thrown this on its head. And I get it, but Fortnite has 3 to 5 million people playing it at any given time. Okay. Not every game has the luxury of being able to sell things straight up to customers without putting them behind a pack system and make the amount of money that they need to make in order to continue development on that game. I could be wrong. It could just be an honest money grab. Hey, if we do it this way versus this way, we're going to be able to survive either way, but this way we'll make more money. Let's do it this way. Okay, let's make more money. That's a very plausible scenario here. But it could also be a scenario where they're saying, if we don't do it this way, we're not going to make enough income to justify future development or future events or whatever.
Yeah, and I think something we've mentioned before and that I also want to mention that I still believe in is obviously it's still voluntary. You still have the choice to pay for these new skins for the characters and the guns and all that. As I think overpriced they are, it is still an optional choice. You can go and play the house map. You can unlock your 3 packs for free, and then you can walk away without having spent a penny. So I think it's still fair to mention that this is all optional. It's all cosmetic. It's all a choice. I think there is room for improvement. I'm not terribly disappointed. I'm not outraged. I'm not screaming from the roofs. How dare they? I do feel there's a lot of things that were put into place here to sort of make more profit than usual, to sell more of these packs than usual, and I think they can do without that. That's what disappoints me a little bit. But at the end of the day, I actually had decent fun on that map. Obviously, it's not serious. Obviously, you're not going to be able to be as competitive on it. You sometimes can't see them. Sometimes they can't see you. But it's just be dumb and run around and shoot things. It's I've not been too disappointed in the experience itself. It is a little bit disappointing that there's all this sort of you could almost call it shady, this shady marketing that is kind of woven into the whole thing. And I think they could very easily, for the next one, just move a little bit further along the spectrum of having it more focused on being a fun event and less focused on being a sales ploy. And it literally is just a nudge in the other direction, and this concept can be a success, I think.
Let's give them advice here. Let's say Christmas, they're looking at doing something similar. What advice would you give them? How would you see them pulling this off and having a better reception, not only from you guys, but also from the community?
Decoration of the map. I think they kind of nailed it with the madhouse. I thought they did really well. It was interesting. Do not go so dark. Yes, I know Halloween is this kind of, it's about terrors that go bump in the night and all that. So we're going to have a dark map. But I mean, crikey, it's ridiculous. It's not even fun to play. And I know it's not just me that feels that way. I'm speaking to other people that saying that they're just grinding out. So, don't go down that route. Try something different. Don't just put bomb mode in Cafe Dostoevsky and then add like a few Christmas presents around and a few more Christmas trees.
Because they're already there, aren't they?
A few more. I did say a few more.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't just add a few more Christmas trees to Cafe and, do something different. Like, this is your opportunity. In the roadmap for year one of the things that they'd promised was a new game mode, but then they went back on that, and I'm not at all upset about it. They said, look, putting a new game mode into Rainbow Six Siege is difficult because of the nature of how the game is. But surely for these events, they can just use their imagination and do anything they want, because even if it's really silly, it's just a week. Like Flank said, you could have attack and defense working together, and people would be like, do you know what? That kind of makes sense because Smoke is SAS, Sledge is SAS. Yeah, they could work together. So you have a bit more inspiration with what you actually do with the event, and don't make it feel so kind of cheap, like you're just trying to make money out of it. That would be my advice. Like I've always said about this loot box fad, I don't like, the whole idea of it being a reward after a game. That's really cool. Okay, I can accept that. but it's insidious the way they crept these into these events, you know, Sunsplash and whatever the outbreak packs were called, and now this, because you can only get a couple of them in game, and then if you want to buy them, it's a lottery as to whether you get the one you want. So I don't really like that practice. Simple. Have it so that you can individually purchase whatever the cosmetics are and be done with it.
If
But
I would
make
have
them
to,
really good.
if I would have to guess how people approach these kind of pack events, I'd say that most people probably won't buy any, and then the second largest group would probably be the people who buy all of them. I think they'll be mostly an all or nothing, and I don't think there'll be many people in between that will be targeting a single one and will be buying one pack at a time to try and get to that. I think if you really want something in there, or you like several of them, you're going to go all of them most of the time, or you just go, well, they're cosmetics, I don't care, and you buy none of them. That's probably what I see. And I guess that is the point of them, because if there's one really cool skin in there, one really cool cosmetic, rather than everyone buying that one, you get half the people buying all of them, which is like 20 times the price. So you're doing well out of that in terms of making money.
Yeah, the advice I would give is, like you said, Pete, be creative with not only the decorations and, you know, how you do that, but also the game mode. You know, imagine rescue the hostage. The hostage is Santa Claus. You get him up to the roof, and there's Santa Claus and his reindeer. You know, there's a sleigh and reindeer there that you have to, you know, rescue Santa Claus and get him up there. Like, you could do that's not like a crazy outbreak event like I was suggesting in house, but that's just adding some things here and there to really make it pretty cool. I mean, that would be pretty awesome. And then, yeah, I think that, Rogue, you made a great point with whatever you do here, make the balance between fun gameplay and making money. Make that needle always stay on the fun gameplay aspect of it. And I think that it'll be better received by the community, as well as you'll probably end up selling more of those events. If an event is memorable, you know, I mean, think about it. Like, you walk off of a ride in Disney World and you come out and there's that souvenir shop there where you can buy a t-shirt. I survived whatever ride I was just on. If that ride was boring, I'm not going to buy anything. But if that ride was amazing, then I want the souvenir to show for it. Maybe we go into that line of thinking. So anything else you guys want to add on the Halloween event?
No, that's about it for me.
Let's get into some other games right now, because there's a lot going on. Obviously, you know, the elephant in the room, Red Dead Redemption 2. I've been playing it. I know Pete's been playing it. What are your thoughts so far, Red? Or I'm sorry, Pete.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. We was having a chat about it before we went live. There's a very different pacing to the game, right? It, like how it slows you down, and I feel as though my attention span has been shot to bits. Something to do with always checking your phone and your Twitter and your notification. It's like you can't concentrate on one thing. And then Red Dead Redemption, you're riding around on your horse, and it slows everything down. I think it's a fantastic game. I'm really enjoying it. I've managed to kill my horse already, so that's a good thing. I'm walking everywhere trying to steal a horse. I've only played maybe 6 or 7 hours. I've just sort of got to the open world stage, the first couple of missions, but it's kind of like what Rogue was saying last week, a bit of a guilty pleasure. It's something that I'm just doing to enjoy gaming, you know? I'm not going to be making videos on it or streaming it or anything like that. It's just enjoying these new games that come out. You know, there's been so many games over the years that I've missed or not got round to, like The Witcher 3, that I just didn't want to miss this one.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I was traveling over the weekend, so again, I'm just kind of getting to, I think, the right around the same point that you are in the game, Pete. I think the pacing of it has been an adjustment. I think there's been times where, am I playing a game where I need to loot or am I not? Because there's been times where I'm on, like, the train, for example. It's one of the first missions you do, and you're running through the train trying to, you know, stop it. And I'm killing people, and I'm like, do I need to loot this guy's body? Because there's a music going on. The person who's with me is like shouting at me, hey, hurry up, hurry up. And the looting process isn't fast. It's not like you just walk over stuff and, you know, you hit a button and you pick everything up. It's like you flip the body over, you reach in their pockets, you're grabbing stuff out. It's very realistic. I get what they're going for, and I respect that, but it is an adjustment. The pacing of the game is very slow in the beginning. Graphics, I'm playing on a PS4 Pro on a 4K monitor. I'm doing the same thing as you. I'm not streaming or anything. I am blown away by some of the animations in this game. The horses, holy cow, do the horses look real? Like their movements, the way that their hair, like, I mean, everything about it is unreal. Some of those animations they pulled off.
Have you run a horse into a tree at full pelt yet?
No, I haven't.
Brilliant.
Oh, nice.
And I mean, that's something that even the first Red Dead was known for. I remember playing that on a television in the family living room, and my father came by, and it's like, wow, those horses look really real. And this is how long ago this is? Now 2010? Yeah, 2010. So 8 years ago. And he noticed it back then, so they've only improved on that even more. So yeah, obviously I've not tried it yet. I'm looking forward to playing it, but I have no doubt that it's going to be just a mind-blowing game. But I do have my reservations, and something came up sort of this week that has made me even more negative on Rockstar for what they're doing. Specifically, and we spoke about this last week, so let's not go into too much detail there, but obviously it's not out on PC, and we don't know when. It's not been even officially confirmed yet. We know it's coming. There's been various data mines. There's been various people creeping on LinkedIn pages and seeing that a PC version is in development, so we know it is coming, but nothing official, nothing when, and that is on purpose. I am convinced it's on purpose. My theory last week was they're keeping the release date for PC secret to double sell. People want to play it now, they buy the console version, and then when the PC version comes out with added DLC, with added online functionality, yada yada yada, that's when people will buy it again, just like they did for GTA. Now, having gone through Twitter over the last few days, I have seen at least 5 different people sort of in my close circle. Like, there's the 2 of you who've bought brand new consoles just to play Red Dead. Kickstar never ever has owned a console ever. He's now buying a console to play Red Dead. Meaty Marley, brand new console just to buy Red Dead, play Red Dead. Panky, the caster, former ESL caster, now CCS caster, I think that's what it's called. Again for Rainbow Six, he's again buying a brand new console to play Red Dead Redemption. So I'm starting to get the sneaky suspicion that maybe part of the ploy here is also that that the developer is cooperating with Microsoft and Sony to try to sell consoles. And I wouldn't be surprised if you buy the bundle version of the whatever Xbox One X or the PS4 Pro. If you buy the bundled version, I would almost, and this is just me guessing, but I'd almost not be surprised if there's a kickback going towards Rockstar. So that's one thing that, as much as I'm looking forward to the game. It's good value for money,
though, the bundle. It's really good value for money.
Okay.
Because you get the console and the game.
Yeah, fair enough.
It works out quite cheap.
Think about this. Honestly, like, I know that you want to go, like, think about this. $399 right now. You get a PS4 Pro and Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm playing on 4K right now. Now, I know that there's going to be people out there that it's not true 4K, that the PS4 Pro just upscales, whatever. Okay. I'm playing on a 4K monitor. The resolution that's coming through that screen right now is 4K. The graphics are melting my brain as I'm literally watching this, okay? $400. What would it cost me to do? I don't think my PC could do that. And I have an upscale PC. I mean, it's not as crazy as I don't think either of your guys is, but I've got a 1080 Ti. I've got, an i8. I've got a decent PC. $400. You go to the store and you come home and you plug it into a 4K TV and you can get performance like that. It's pretty amazing what consoles are doing these days.
Plus, it's a Blu-ray player and a Netflix machine and an Amazon Prime Video machine, and certainly in the UK you can get all of the television catch-ups on there. It becomes sort of just a media hub. That replaces anything else your television is connected to. So, yeah, I know consoles are great and all. And I don't doubt that it's a good value. I'm just I'm just still salty that I can't play it on
Because
PC
it's
right
not on
now.
PC.
God damn
That's
him.
the bit
Yes.
that pisses you off,
Yes,
isn't it? It's
well,
because it's not on.
also, I still think it's I still think it's kind of shady. They're keeping it secret for a reason. It's not because
Yes.
they can't tell us even an approximate release date. Like, games get announced a year in advance, 6 months in advance. This is nothing new. The fact that they're keeping completely quiet is, I think, for profit, for sure.
I mean, it's not an unreasonable point of view, because had it come out on PC, I probably wouldn't have bought a PS4 Pro with it, because I do have a PlayStation 4 and I do have an Xbox One Elite, but I was reading on the reviews that it performs best on the Xbox One X, and which is a bit dearer than the PlayStation Pro, but then the PlayStation Pro, then the PS4, then the standard Xbox One. And I just really wanted to experience it with 4K graphics, because I do have a 4K television. So I just went out and got the PlayStation Pro bundle. Had it been an Xbox One X bundle, I probably would have got that instead. But because they'd done it with PlayStation, and it really was quite good value for money, that's why I went down that route. But I do get your frustration,
Yeah.
like it does feel a little bit as though they're holding it back on PC.
Yeah,
To do that.
Obviously,
Yeah,
it affects me
absolutely.
personally, but I still do think it's kind of a dirty thing after the fact that they've kind of worked their employees to death as well, which I really empathize with them for. So they've made a great product, but they've harmed people along the way.
That story's not over yet. There's now anonymous employees that are talking and saying that it's much worse than what the developers let on. So maybe next episode we'll have more details on that. We'll be able to talk about, the strain that's being put on developers to produce games that are, as good as Red Dead Redemption. And speaking of which, let's move on to Black Ops 4. Their servers, we talked in the previous episode, just real quick here, about how, the big story was that they're running 20 hertz servers in multiplayer as well as Blackout, and in the beta they were running 60 hertz, and a lot of people felt that was pretty shady of them. Well, they're now up to 63 hertz in multiplayer, so that's just happened within the last few days. Blackout, as far as I know, nothing has changed, but in Black Ops 4 multiplayer, they are running 63 hertz. Anything you guys want to add to that?
Nope, good move, I think.
Okay.
Yep, good move.
Also, in other game news, Battlefield BR. We've got the roadmap, I guess you could say the roadmap equivalent for Battlefield over the upcoming year. And it looks like Firestorm, which is the Battle Royale game mode coming with Battlefield 5, isn't going to be coming until March. I personally see this as a huge blunder. I think that this is just another just folly in the series of follies that has been Battlefield 5. And I think that look at what Blackout has done for Black Ops 4.
It sold it to many people.
It absolutely has sold that game.
There are many people who play nothing but Blackout.
I feel like Battlefield 5 is dead on arrival right now. I honestly do. I'm sorry, but I love Battlefield. I love the series. I've enjoyed my time in the alpha and the beta, but I just think I think it's going to be the lowest selling Battlefield game since pre-Battlefield 3. I would almost guarantee that.
It's sadly an uphill battle. You've called it a series of blunders. I would go ahead and call it a single problem that has caused all of this from the very beginning, when they had a poor announcement with not enough info and then no real information after that. All of this is caused by the fact that they are in delay. They tried from the beginning to keep to a schedule of media information release and then the game release that they were not ready for. They've pushed back the release date itself, which was then a problem, and now obviously the Battle Royale mode not coming for several months. All of this is just because they were trying to push for a release that just wasn't there. That's it. That's caused all of this trouble that they've gone through, I think, personally. And it's a shame that they are having to push to try and get this out for obviously the Christmas season or even before then. And that's they're struggling with that to a point where it's now already harmed the reputation of the game before it's even out.
Yeah. I feel as though it's like they don't allow enough time to develop the game. This live service thing is, let's just agree, surely, that had they had it been ready, it would have been with the launch, right? It's because it's not fully built. So then they use the live service to release the content that arguably some of which would have been with the launch, and then obviously some of which would have in the past been under the premium, what is known as season pass in other games, would have been under the premium, like the maps and whatnot. And I think some of that isn't really DICE's fault, because we've seen it with other DICE games that have come out a little bit content light, and then further DLCs, free DLCs, have brought the content up that wasn't there in the base game. And I said to you guys earlier, Battlefront was very much like that. You know, Walker Assault, I think, only had 2 maps. It was so light on content at launch that it took about six months, maybe 12 months for it to feel like a full game.
You'd almost feel that sort of DICE EA, they would be well served to just have 6 months of a period or even a year where they just make sure that they get the games to where they are supposed to be, rather than launching every game literally in succession, because you can argue that a lot of great features were added into Battlefront 2 after launch, even long after launch, that weren't there at the beginning. Like I played the beta, and I said at the time, I'm not interested in this because it doesn't have true multiplayer. I can't really cooperate. It doesn't have squad-based gameplay, right? Because you always spawn with randoms. You can't really cooperate with your friends. That was missing. They put that in probably a year after launch or something like it. It was massively delayed. You'd think that rather than going literally pushing every game 6 months too early or whatever it is, just have that gap and then get those games done and launch them properly so that they can have the impact they have. Because they do support the games going on, and they do end up being really good eventually.
Yeah.
Well, but I think what you both said there is that DICE is basically, with Battlefront 2 and with Battlefield, is in a constant state of reaction and not they're constantly putting out their product and then reacting to try to fix it. You know what I mean? It's instead of, like, honestly, I know this is a PR disaster, but at some point somebody should have scrapped Battlefield 5 this year and said it will not be out until next fall. That should have happened. They should have said, we will not release this game this year. Go ahead, have your fun Black Ops 4, have your fun Red Dead. We're not going to sell a copy of this game anyway because we've already messed it up this bad. Scrap it this year, bring it out next year on a light release schedule year, and make it right. And they would have been so much better.
Company, it tells its shareholders what games are coming up, and it's committed to that. You know, the fact of the matter remains, I enjoyed Battlefield 5 Alpha and Beta. I thought it was a really fun, enjoyable game. The only point I'm making is the releases of multiple DICE games have been a little bit light on content. Yes. They've launched quite stable, you know, when you compare to Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4. They have moved on from that with stable launches, but just a little bit light on the content front. So what it looks as though they're doing is just saying, hey, you know, this live service, you do not need to pay for any of the maps or anything, but you just, like, on the roadmap in so ever many months, you're going to get a map. In so ever many months, you'll get some new game modes. But arguably, some of that stuff would have been better to have been there at launch, surely. That's my point, anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with hindsight, I would agree. I think it's with hindsight. Obviously, if anyone could have foreseen the disaster that it would have been up until now, the call would have been, let's push this back immediately. Because if you think about it, before we had that sort of announcement event that was kind of a bit of a flop, before then, there weren't really any leaks. There was nothing. It was like a week before the event itself, they started purposefully putting out teasers and saying, hey, things are going to happen. Before then, there'd been no news at all. Yeah. And you'd think, like, if they'd known at that point, and obviously they didn't, that it was going to play out the way it did, they should have just pushed everything back, not even announce it. Like, rather than have to announce it and then have to push it back and have that disappointment, just don't even announce it. Get to the point where it's ready. Then I'm saying that with hindsight. Now we know they obviously didn't at the time, so it is what it is.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because again, I love the Battlefield series, and I think healthy and good Battlefield game is good for the gaming community as a whole. So I wish it the best. I don't wish failure upon it. I don't think this game is. I think it's going to be a massive flop, and it's going to hurt Battlefield's name moving forward, in my opinion. Anything else you guys want to add on that subject? You guys want to move on to some Pro League here before we get into some user questions? We'll just cover Pro League very, very, very quickly. You guys okay with that?
Yeah, some interesting things definitely to look at there, I think.
Yeah, let's get into some topical subjects when it comes to Pro League, and then we'll get into the bracket for the upcoming season finals. So the first topic I want to get into is there are a lot of people who were upset with Mouse Gaming. So Mouse Gaming played a match in the last week. Mouse Esports, I may be saying that. I think it's actually Mouse Esports.
Yeah, that's it.
But so Mouse Esports played a match against Noble. Noble was competing with Obey Gaming or Obey in that last 7th and 8th spot. So it was a match that meant nothing to Mouse. They had nothing to gain from it and everything to Noble and also everything to Obey. Obey played earlier, actually tied EG, so they still had a chance to being in that 7th spot instead of the 8th spot. 8th spot gets auto relegated. 7th spot has a chance of winning a match and coming back into Pro League next year. Well, Mouse Sports played some unique tactics, we'll say, and did some things that led a lot of people to believe that they actually threw that match. There has been well-documented bad blood between England, one of the players for Mouse Sports, and Skies, one of the players for Obey. So a lot of people think that England, being the IGL for Mouse Sports, purposely threw that game in order to send Skies and Obey into Challenger League and make sure they weren't in Pro League next year. That's all speculation. All the players have come out and said we did not throw. We were trying some new tactics. We would never do that. Universally, all players have denied any act of throwing. What do you guys say about this?
Prove it.
A great shame, I think. Obviously, it's very hard to prove. I would like to think that since match fixing in any form is officially and very explicitly against the ESL R6 rules, I would like to think that ESL is looking into it. I reached out to them this morning, to get an official confirmation. Is anything happening? Even sort of just a high level, no reply. So no official confirmation, but I'd like to think they're looking into it. Because it was a shame for me personally for several reasons. I think a lot of people are arguing, why are you annoyed at Mouse for losing, but the first ranked team, EG, didn't manage to beat the last ranked team, Obey, so how can you give Obey and EG a pass there? But I watched both games, and EG didn't play like dog food. They didn't play like idiots. The match was competitive. It felt competitive. Yes. It looked competitive. Yeah. And I think the important part is that Obey played pretty well. They deserved that draw. They fought hard and managed to get a draw against the number one ranked team at the moment, EG, and obviously one of the longest running best teams in the world. They did well to get to that point, and then you get to watch this absolute clown show where Noble are playing like clowns, like literally like clowns, but at the same time, Mouse are clowning even harder. It was a total and utter mess. You watch that and you see Parker and Kickstar really confused. Every round, they're completely flabbergasted. They don't know what's going on. So whether it was a purposeful plan, I think that can't be certainly not proven at the moment. Maybe ESL will find something somewhere, but it's probably going to be difficult. I can't say that it was a purposeful endeavor by Mouse to lose that game, but they certainly didn't try to win it. And the real shame is that because of the way that Pro League worked in this season, we ended up with a situation where a team that had nothing to play for suddenly was playing against a team that had everything to play for. And it's a shame to not see. If Noble had capitalized on it and they played really well, okay, at least they deserved that. But they played really horribly and really didn't deserve it in my eyes. So it really was a shame. there's been a lot of people coming out for and against. There's a lot of people who are convinced that Mouse did that half on purpose at the very least. I've seen 2 separate players from Rogue coming out in support of Mouse. One player, I think it might have been Easily, saying that he's seen those strats, exactly those strats before in a scrim. And I think I also saw another player mention on Reddit that Mouse might have been keeping their powder dry, keeping their strats secret, which I think is a nonsense excuse. When you're playing ESL Pro League once a week, and you've also got the US Nationals once a week, you're playing twice a week, that one game, hiding your strategies on that one game is not going to make a difference. I don't buy that, is the honest answer. And I mean, in that same Reddit thread, the manager of Mouse also, or coach or whatever he listed himself as, he also came out with a very long and meandering explanation. Part of it, I'm going to say, is probably a language barrier. Just reading his English, it almost seemed as if he's a German guy. I'm not quite sure. But his English, he was either very emotional and typing very fast, or English isn't his first language. I'm not actually sure. But it wasn't great. That aside, his arguments were rather meandering as well. And a lot of them weren't convincing in my eyes. It's like, if you come out and you're going to make excuses or give explanations as to why you didn't purposefully throw that and try to prove it, stick to 1 or 2 good examples rather than making 7 different arguments which partially contradict themselves. You can find that on a Reddit thread. I don't want to go into much more detail, but I didn't find that convincing. I almost found it a bit suspicious rather than helpful that he came out in that way.
Yeah, I mean, for the integrity of any sport, not just esports, not just Rainbow Six Siege, any sport, you need teams to obviously go in and attempt to win. But I think the problem is, it's just, if something shady did happen, and no one knows for sure, like 100% other than those involved, whether they did or didn't try to lose, then obviously the onus is to prove that they've done something wrong. And the fact that they've come out afterwards and, like you say, said that they were trying different things and, you know, they weren't trying to lose at all, then I think unless you have evidence that disputes that fact, then you have to take them on their word. You can't assume guilt. If they've come, if some of those players come out like England and said, yeah, screw you, you know, you're going down, ha ha ha, blah blah blah. None of them did that. They were like, oh man, you know, like, we really tried. And if you were going to try a new tactic, I mean, surely for them, that is the time to try it. You know, that is the time. That is the time to try it with nothing riding on it for them. But I'm not saying nothing shady happened, and I'm not saying it was shady. I'm just saying, unless you have evidence, then we all need to move on. Investigate it, do what you have to do. But unless there's evidence, then as far as I'm concerned, we all move on. I would like to talk a little bit, because Flanked, you tweeted after it. Obviously, you was a bit upset about what went down, saying about the relegation. That's the problem with.
Let me clarify that, because I tweeted that the one thing that we know for sure. I think my tweet was something along. One thing we know for sure after tonight is that auto relegation is probably something that shouldn't come back, because but go ahead with your thought there, Pete.
I disagree with that, and I think it might be a cultural thing. So I'm not going in hard or anything. I just think it might be a cultural thing, because in Europe we're kind of used to this auto relegation. It's an everyday thing. In sporting teams, there's been teams gone down. I can remember a team going down in the Premier League, and they blamed another team, Manchester United, for not fielding a strong enough team against their opponent on the final day. Had Manchester United won that game, then the other team would have stayed up, and that was their argument. But then the manager of Manchester United at the time, Alex Ferguson, said, look, I've got an FA Cup final. I'm putting out a good enough team that I think is to win this game, but I also need to rest my best players for the FA Cup final, which is in a few days. So this kind of conversation is almost normal in Europe. But the idea, really, of it coming down to one match, I mean, they just had a terrible season, you know?
Yes, absolutely.
And it's super harsh, but You need relegation, and I think you need auto relegation, because then at least you're guaranteed one fresh team coming up. Without that, you could, theoretically, you just have the same team sat there all the time. So you do need fresh blood coming up, and I think it's really good for the scene as a whole to have that, to have that opportunity.
I mean, if you
But
have
I don't-
playoffs instead of relegation, instead of auto relegation, you just end up with the better of the two teams rather than an automatic exchange.
Yeah, that's a fair argument, but why don't we do that in every league? I mean, the point of the matter is it just guarantees that a fresh team will be given an opportunity. With the playoffs, in all likelihood, it could just be the same teams again.
That's true, and that team had 14 games to.
That's exactly
to make sure that they avoid that situation. I get it. There's arguments on both sides. My overall thoughts on the whole thing: I don't think Mouse necessarily threw. I think that they went into that match saying, "Hey, what's something you've always wanted to try in Pro League on Oregon? Is that the map that they even played, or Clubhouse?
It was Clubhouse.
What's a strat you always wanted to try?
Let's all run down blue in the first 10 seconds. Goal.
Okay, but and that's not necessarily throwing. It's not them. I don't think that they got into the Discord before the match and said, "Listen, I hate Skies. I want to lose this match." I don't think that happened. With that said, I think that if they needed to win that match in order to stay in Pro League, they would have probably played that match a little differently.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
The other story that was real big out of Pro League. Go ahead.
I have one thing to say before we wrap it up, and that's in response to sort of Pete. Pete made sort of the argument, innocent unless proven guilty, right? That's kind of what you're saying. I think, yes, I agree with that absolutely. Innocent unless proven guilty in terms of punishment, in terms of kicking Mouse out of Pro League or doing anything else to adjust what happened. Yes, I fully agree with that. But I certainly will say that I think I and anyone else may still hold exactly what opinion they wish to hold. I don't need to be convinced of what is true. I don't need evidence to hold my own opinion, and that's something I'm going to stick by. I won't adjust my opinion for lack of evidence. I accept that there won't be no punishment unless there's evidence, but I still maintain the right to hold whatever opinion I want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And just one thing, I totally agree. Maybe I think it was a little bit sus, what they were doing. I'm just saying, there were daggers out after that on Twitter, and I was like seeing people tweeting about it, and I'm just saying, like, you cannot just, that's not how it works. You need evidence. But I'm not saying to myself, it was very funny looking. Do you know what I mean? Let's be real about it. But you can't take action on that.
I was going to talk a little bit about the forfeit, but I'm thinking we just go straight into the bracket. I don't, unless you guys have something regarding that forfeit you really want to dive into. I'd say we'll just skip it. Just to summarize for you guys who are watching, listening, Space Station and Cloud9 were supposed to play last week. It ended up Cloud9 forfeiting because one of their players couldn't get the ESL wire to work properly, and the match was delayed. And ESL eventually gave Space Station the option to let that player play without wire, and instead they said, no, we will take the forfeit. That's the way I understand it working. There was some controversy surrounding that, but in the end, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I don't really want to go into it. In all honesty, I think we just move on to the bracket.
Fair enough.
All right, so I'm going to pull it up actually right now. Give me one second.
Yeah, if you're listening back, you can find this under the Rainbow Six Esports Twitter handle.
Yes. So give me 1 second and I'll get it up on the screen here. Basically, this is showing the bracket. Out of the long season that we just played, we now have everybody decided who's going to be competing in the finals in Brazil. That's going to take place mid-November. I want to say... November 18th and 19th, I want to say. So I have that up on the screen right now. I'll make it a little bit bigger here. There you go. Okay, so here's the bracket for the, I guess it would be Season 8 finals in Brazil. And you have FaZe Clan taking on Mocket, Noringo taking on Rogue, Evil Geniuses taking on Fnatic, and G2 taking on Immortals. So we'll eventually do some predictions and stuff, I'm sure. Big things that jump out to me, just glancing through that real quick. You have G2 and Evil Geniuses on the same side of the bracket. The top side of that bracket, wow. If you were ever going to choose FaZe Clan to make it to the finals, it's looking really good for them. No disrespect to the rest of the teams up there, but I mean, wow. So what do you guys have to say? What jumps out to you with that?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of FaZe Clan have done well, but I have to say Latin America throughout the entire season, first half and second half, has been really competitive and really sort of mixed. Every team has been kind of in it and out of it and lost and won. FaZe Clan emerged the clear winner, yes. But I don't know. Rogue didn't have like a clear-cut, amazing season. They only just squeaked into that second place that got them into the final at LAN as well. So Rogue hasn't been super strong. But I think Mockit, as when they were Augulus during the first half of the season, they were mediocre, but they have really, really stepped up to, in my mind, almost become the clear-cut second-place team in EU behind G2 at the moment. So they are on fire, and they have been throughout the second half of the season. I wouldn't count them out.
Pete, anything you want to add as far as the bracket?
Not really. I think we could perhaps see a semi-final. What do you think Mockit will take on FaZe? Because I think we're going to see FaZe, Rogue, semi-final, EG, G2 semi-final, and then
wow,
just getting the predictions in.
I mean, I give Mockit a chance at the very least. I'm not saying they will. I'm not saying they're the favorite, but I'm saying they will have a chance. I think they've really stepped it up throughout these especially these last games. They have momentum going, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's going to be interesting. I really I can't wait to see what happens. I don't think that we were talking about Clash earlier. I will be very surprised if we don't see a heavy dose of Clash. I know that we haven't seen Clash really develop in Pro League yet in the best of ones and stuff, but trust me when I'm saying that there are a lot of teams that have some Clash strats that they haven't shown. And I think that she's going to play a huge role in the Season 8 finals. So that's kind of my tidbit that I'll go there. But yeah, maybe next week we'll do the prediction show where we go and we do all of our predictions. What do you guys say?
Sure. Sounds good.
All right. Let's get into some user questions now. Do either of you guys have anything ready?
No. I'll just tell my chat to leave questions.
Yes, do ask your question now. I've had several throughout, but of course we don't get to them until the end. So do post them again if you have a chance.
I had one, and maybe this might actually be a full topic next week. I don't know. This is a pretty in-depth topic, but thoughts on Pingu's long tweet about the state of Siege, where it's at right now, and his feelings on it. Did you guys have a chance to read through that at all?
I skimmed over it.
Okay, I read it. It was long. What about you, Pete?
I skimmed over it very briefly. It's like something I've put aside to read when I got a minute because it's quite lengthy, as you say.
Yeah, maybe we'll just save that to next week because I do think there's a lot there that we could go over. Like, so maybe let's. Well, no, I think here. I'll give you my opinion since you asked the question. Just very, very, very briefly, I think there's a lot of stuff in there that is very true. And but with that said, there's some stuff in there that he's only talking from his own mindset, and you have to take that with a grain of salt. But so I don't agree with 100% of it, but the vast majority of it there, I think, is very wise and would do a lot to really do a lot of good stuff for this game. So I think that when somebody like Pingu talks, you definitely listen, and I think he makes a lot of great points.
Dennis Riley, should Ubisoft buff shotguns and DMRs?
Both of them are challenging. I think shotguns especially because they have that dual role. They are a utility item. They can open up walls, they can open up hatches, etc., and they are kind of a weapon. So I accept that shotguns are underpowered because they bring abilities with them that no other gun has really, with very few exceptions, and you usually need a gadget to do. So I accept shotguns where they are. I think they're rubbish. I hate playing them, but I think it's absolutely fair. In terms of DMRs, I think it would be fair enough to give them additional powers to maybe open hatches, maybe open walls a bit more, because right now, especially when you have an operator who has a DMR and an assault rifle, there is not enough incentive, apart from maybe Blackbeard, to use the DMR, because the assault rifles, for the most part, are superior. It's only Blackbeard, and the only reason why Blackbeard, there is a choice, and most people choose, or used to choose, the SR-25, is because the Mark 17 is so absolutely god-awful. It's the worst, literally the worst assault rifle you can use, and that's the only reason. So I think giving DMRs more of a reason to exist is a fair point, and maybe give them some utility.
It's interesting. Bikini's been talking about this in our little chat that we have with a lot of Siege YouTubers, and I think he's brought up some good things. I like the opening a hatch. I think that anybody who's running a DMR should be able to open a hatch like glass. I think that makes sense. Give it to him. Why not? One thing he's mentioned that's interesting to think about is if you kill somebody with a DMR, it will always kill them instead of putting them down but not out. I think that's a bit strong, personally, but it's an interesting idea. I think that's the way that you go with DMRs instead of, because in every game ever, DMRs are a really tough thing to balance. They're either overpowered or they're underpowered. I feel like very rarely do you find a DMR first-person shooter that's balanced well. And I think the way that you can balance them well is giving them these additional perks. Don't buff their damage, don't buff their fire rate, don't do that, but just giving them an added incentive.
Yeah, I'd go along with that. I just wonder what the split is between some of these operators that have, the option of the DMR and something else. I wonder how many people use the DMR, and if that is something, because we look at these graphs on operator pick rate. I'd be interested to see what some of the weapon pick rate is for some of these operators and if they would revisit them. But yeah, I don't really like. I know a lot of people back in the day used to love Buck with the DMR, and I know people that could fire it very quickly. But for me, I would always prefer an automatic weapon because it will just get you out of stickier situations. Right. Okay. So do either of you have a question?
Yeah, I've got a few. A lot of people asking about elite animations on regular uniforms. I think the idea of any kind of emotes or animation at the end is a worthy idea. A lot of people seem interested in it. A lot of people want to use the elite animations they've purchased on regular gear rather than having to use that costume in and of itself. I think that's a good idea, and I mean, if Ubisoft tread carefully, that could be an additional revenue stream. You look at something like Fortnite, where people will pay for animations, I'm assuming. I think that's how it works, alongside different costumes, different cosmetics. So I think that's obviously allowing people who have those elite animations and elite costumes to use those in other combinations is a good first step, and they could even, if they tread lightly enough and respectfully enough, open it up to an entire new market of things people can buy if they want to. I think it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, that's interesting, because some of, the whole idea of that the victory animation at the end is kind of a new concept. Like so many things added to Rainbow Six Siege during its lifespan, whether that be a claymore or an elite animation, the changes to the HUD. So I think it seems to be a relatively harmless thing that they could include, where just as you might buy a weapon skin, perhaps you could buy a victory animation for an operator that you could use at the end. I'll be honest, it isn't something that especially interests me, but maybe the younger audience would like that, like they do in Fortnite. But yeah, I don't see an issue with that at all.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. That elite animations, if you purchase that elite, whenever you use that operator, maybe you have to put an option in the game, because what if you don't want that to happen? I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't want that animation to take place in the winner's circle if you're MVP, but maybe you have to add an option in there to turn it off. I don't know, but it's a no-brainer. Why shouldn't your elite animation work with any combination of things, and it would just do nothing but sell more elite animations? It's a no-brainer to me.
But what if you had all 5 winning operators doing an animation at the end? Are you okay with that?
No. Only MVP. Only the first place.
Okay.
I'd go as far as to say maybe the other 4 can do something small, like not just stand there, but not as pronounced as the MVP. Have the MVP front and center, but have the others do something a bit more.
Scratch their ass.
Not quite, maybe more along what they would do anyway, what they would do normally anyway, but just sort of like a toned down, a very much toned down version. So you still get that MVP, but giving everyone, because you can't always be MVP, especially if you play like me. So why not give everyone the chance? And again, if we're talking about opening up this opportunity and creating this new thing in Rainbow Six, then give everyone sort of a little bit at least. I personally would be happy with it.
I'd go along with that. Yep. Cool.
Let's see what I have here. Weapon sight customization. We've already talked about that.
Yes.
We all think that it's a good idea, but it's something you have to balance very closely because you don't want to get to a point where there's one go-to site, and that's something that Siege does very well, that there's advantages and disadvantages to all the sites in the game. So somebody said a way of nerfing Legion would be to make his Legions not invisible anymore. And granted, we realize they're not completely invisible, but maybe we could say translucent. So making his goo mines appear instead of having that invisibility effect to them. I think that might be going a bit too far. Personally, I would go the direction of, right now he has a maximum of 7. I might go to a maximum of 5 first. That might be the direction I would go. Maybe even the first thing I would do was take away his impacts, because we all know how strong those are and how, that would probably bring his pick rate a little bit further, but his win rate wouldn't necessarily be affected by that. I don't know. But I would probably go to 5.
I would be cautious about calling his win rate a problem right now anyway, because especially only 1 season ago he was barely above 0. So I'd still be cautious about calling him a trouble in terms of win rate for sure, even though this season he clearly is a very good operator. He's performing very well.
Yeah, I agree. I think in response to the question, I think that they need to be how they are visibly. It would be such a drastic change. It's not as though they haven't done it before, but I just feel it would be such a drastic change to do that when they could just tweak the numbers, have less of them.
Yeah.
Ultimately, though, I feel like we've said this a while. I'm sure at some point there's going to be an attacker that sort of disables electronics like Thatcher, but on his or herself, and then they charge into an objective and they disable electronics, and then their team can follow behind them. So I feel like that will come, and that will be a balancing type thing. But in response to the question, no, I don't want them made visible. I think just lower the amount. If he only had 1 of them, would he be a problem? But then, like Rogue said, let's just give him a bit of time and see how he stands at the end of next season. If he's in a similar place, maybe.
One thing I would add to him right now is maybe his 5-second cooldown before they can be activated. Because one of the tactics you're seeing now, and you guys mark it down in your calendars, here's going to be the first time that Get Flanked has ever talked positively about shields, or that shields needing a buff in any way, shape, or form. But one of the tactics you're seeing Legions use now against shields, which is very strong, is they throw both impact grenades at a shield, and then they'll start throwing their goo mines at a shield. And all it is they throw the goo mine, it hits the shield, it drops, and instantly goes off. And maybe if there was a 5-second cooldown on that, so that a goo mine couldn't be thrown and used as a projectile weapon in that scenario, that would be a good change that could be brought to a goo mine, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. I think there's supposed to be a pre-placed weapon, really. I mean, you think back far enough, you'd say that probably C4 was intended to be a pre-placed weapon, and now it's a projectile. And you could almost argue that maybe give those a timer and be done with, because no one really pre-places those. But that's a different conversation. I think it makes perfect sense to really make those goo mines dedicated traps rather than something you can use on the fly. I think that's a good suggestion for sure.
All right, do you guys have any other questions you want to get to, or you want to wrap it up here?
There's a few we've already talked about. We have already talked in the past about a forgive team kill button. Maybe just briefly, one of the problems with that, there's a lot of arguments for it. One of the problems with it is that you could have a toxic 4-stack that will constantly team kill you, or even a 3-stack or a 2-stack. They could kill each other and ruin your game as a 4th player or whatever, and they could constantly be forgiving and get away with it. So there could be negative consequences that come with that. I think there's more to it than just this needs to be there. This is a no-brainer. So just that as a quick comment.
Okay, well, with that said, let's wrap it up here. Thanks everybody who has hung out. Really appreciate it. Again, this one will be going live on my channel. So really appreciate everybody for hanging out. As for Rogue and Pete, I'm sure they do as well. We're going to sign off now, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
See you guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye. Yeah, so basically...
Sorry, guys. I hustled us there. I was trying to get to everything, so I was like, I was really pushing the topics. I know.
So, yeah, that somehow managed to close down my Discord. Brilliant. Let me see if I can actually get my my face back. What is... It's actually closed down Discord completely. Now you can see your own chat. Isn't that amazing? So anyway, a quick thing I wanted to say. Thank you everyone for joining in today. Now, as you know, I haven't been streaming on YouTube for quite a while. So what I would say is, yeah, check the links in the description below. If you enjoyed yourself today, thank you very much for joining in. And yeah, Get Flanked's Twitch, my Twitch, or Pete's YouTube channel, and these go up every Monday, usually 8 p.m. UK time, 3 p.m. US, but we've had some trouble this week because the times in Europe have already changed and the times in the US not yet, so that was a bit of a muddle, but usually those times. Do go and check Twitch if you want to be part of these in future. So yeah, thanks a lot and see you again soon.